Alright, I'm returning with Mutant Mayhem. I really love this idea. I'm sure nobody else in the world does, but I'm kind of infatuated with it. So I'm gonna bring it home. Today we're doing a build I call Flame Grinder because I use the Grinder perk deck and I have flamethrowers. I think it's a very good name. And so just to lay down the idea of this build here, even if you're not familiar with Payday 2, I shoot flames and I heal. That's good. I live. Yay! If I stop shooting flames, I die. Boo. That's all there is to it. Let's do it. So today's mutators, I've already experimented with cloakers, lots of cloakers. That was interesting. That was interesting. But I think I'm gonna keep doing that. I like to bring back the cloakers, but I'd also like to bring back Hydras. And I don't know if that works with the clone army mutator. We're gonna find out. That's part of the joy of Mutant Mayhem. There's so many mutants. So many mutants. Alright, and here's a good one. A perfect example I'm talking about. Right here in the beginning of Scarface Mansion. Technically you don't never use this place. There's a power switch that can spawn down here. So if you have to come and fix the security, you may have been here before. So this gun's relatively new. There might actually be Payday players who still don't know about this, just because I think a lot of people skipped out on the old, like the final DLCs. This thing has a flamethrower underbarrel and is an LMG. That's like two guns in one. That's epic. To more properly define the limits of this little Mutant Mayhem holdout here, I think I can't go up these stairs. Just gotta stay here in this vicinity. It's gonna turn this place into a minefield. And so even my mines make fire. This build is all in on fire. I love burning people. I'm all about that. So this heist has a very long wave startup because I think you might actually have to kill the head security first. Let's go and do that real fast and see if that speeds anything up. Alright, surely the wave's gotta be coming at this point. Some lazy ass police officers. So it's all cloakers, and when you kill them they turn to tasers. And when you kill the tasers they turn to shotgunners. Alright. And when you kill the shotgunners, that's it. End of life cycle. End of spore evolution tree. And so flames are actually pretty ineffective against cloakers. Not bad against tasers because you can stun them and stop them from tasing you. But the flames will not do much to stop a cloaker. Cloakers have lots of health. I do have my health capped at 30% on this build, so all the healing doesn't really matter. But in exchange, I take less damage. I've been thinking lately about what it takes to be a stand-up comedian in the year 2025. It's not as glamorous as it was in the Seinfeld days. You can't just walk up on stage and be the next Jerry Seinfeld. You get your own NBC pilot. You gotta stand up there, you gotta talk about the TikToks, and you gotta hope that people love it. It'd be kind of dull, I think. Nowhere near as entertaining as Mutant Mayhem content. That's where the real peak of entertainment is. The AI do make this a lot easier. They soak up a lot of shots. Without the AI, I'd be in a real predicament right now. Cover is slim besides these trees over here in this corner. Oh! And with no AI, one cloaker kick would be the end. I think all the trip mines have already gone off at this point. Alright, one wave down. One thing I like about the single player game experience is the brain's ability to wander, search through lost memories, remember traumatic moments. I'm thinking right now, when I had an organic chemistry lab last semester, and I was turning up the water pressure. We had these little chem lab stations. We all got our own because it was an honors, not an honors chem class, but a chem class for majors. And we each got our own workstations. These things were really cool, pretty high tech, quite a lot to trust a bunch of 19 to like 25-year-olds with, I think, but whatever. And they just throw you into it day one. I'd never worked with any of this equipment in my life, and we had a substitute on the first day. And he said, "You're synthesizing." I can't remember the first. It wasn't 1-3. It wasn't anything with chloro in it. I don't know. You're making an organic compound. Pretty simple, really. It was a very simple. I would learn that stuff later. That's the point. Sink or swim, motherfucker. I kind of sank though. That first day, I had no idea what I was doing. I was sitting there waiting to be told what to do. I was probably in that classroom, that lab, for easily like another 30 minutes after everybody else had finished. By the time I started cleaning up, by the time the last person finished cleaning up their station, I had just gotten to clean up. I had just started finishing my work. And so that sucked. But that's not what I was thinking of specifically. I was thinking of the time where I was turning up the water valve and I didn't know how much to put in there. We were doing a reflux. Ah, shit. I have to actually remember chemistry while trying to shoot things. Okay. 1 second. Give me a second. I'll cut it out. I'll think about it. I'll think long and hard. I'll come up with a good sentence. Okay. So you had this piece of glassware, the jacketed water condenser, and you'd kind of hang it all up over your actual thing that you're boiling. You're boiling a compound, and the idea is you have water being like refluxed through it really fast in this glassware. And that way you can boil your compound at high heat without it all escaping as vapor, because you won't be able to get past the water. I didn't know how much water to put in there. I was turning it. I was like, I don't know, it's going, but I sure can't keep turning this valve. I wouldn't want to stop turning the valve. I grew up playing Source games, right? Valve is a very good thing to me. All this to say, if you've ever been in one of these labs, you know what happens. But thankfully, my audience is 6 people. I don't think they've been in chem labs. I get to share epic information. I kept turning it up until one of the rubber tubes we're using to reflux the water, when it flew off, water flew everywhere. It blew up like this. Didn't blow up. That sounds dangerous. Blowing up in chem lab are two things you don't want next to each other typically. But no, water sprayed everywhere. It got over the glass cover we have in the workstation. And worst of all, I looked like a big stupid fucking idiot. People probably laughed at me. Ah, tragic. Very sad. But thankfully, I'm playing Payday 2 Mutant Mayhem now, so how bad could things really be? I did have to dry up my station before I could keep going. No. Please. No. Oh. I think it's crazy how surprisingly easy it is to just, if you be a chem major and you go through the introductory like Gen Chem courses, once you start getting to those 4 major courses, you are handling dangerous shit, like basically from the get-go. 10 molar concentrated hydrochloric acid. That was just a thing we use fairly frequently. And there's nobody like watching over your shoulder to make sure you weren't doing stuff stupidly. As long as things didn't explode or catch fire, you were more or less able to do it. I say that in quotations, not because you were encouraged to, but because if there's nothing loud for the teacher to check in on, they're not going to know to check in on you. And what I mean by this is that I'm sure I huffed some crazy shit I shouldn't have huffed in there. Not like an insane crack addict getting crazy for the fumes. I was not a fume head, I promise you this. But I'm not good at safety precaution. I forget to do things. I'm scatterbrained. Not somebody who you should trust in a chem lab probably, but I like chemistry, I'm sorry. That is what the fume guard is for. Big sheet of glass. And there's a vacuum to make sure the gas goes up and away. I mean, really, people have been doing this since like the 60s. In the 60s, you just did this in a room. If there's ventilation, you were lucky. So I'm sure it's survivable. I won't be getting terrible pancreatic cancer in a few years, probably. Somebody did spill hydrochloric acid on themselves in that class, but not in a dangerous way. It was a tiny, tiny amount, they didn't even know they did it until like 30. I mean, maybe they didn't even spill it on them that day. That might have been from the previous lab, actually. They just had a little hole in their lab coat. I always liked using the equipment for measuring stuff. I'm an equipment guy. I can get behind the equipment. Machines, I get. Doing stuff with my hands, I'm bad at. Like cooking, I'm really sucky at cooking. Not because I don't think I could do it, but again, I'm scatterbrained and I'm clumsy. And my hands, they go around like this. I don't know what they're doing. My hands play games for me. I don't tell them what to do. There's a game in front of me, it gets played. We had some cool machines in there, though. There's one, you get like a tiny little amount of sample and you put it in this tiny little vial. They have a name. It's the ones they use for blood testing. I don't remember what they're called, though. Same vial. But we put tiny amounts of organic solid in there. But I was really bad at getting the organic solid in there. So I definitely got some excess powder on my notebook and brought that home. And I know for a fact, because you have to write about the safety of the chemicals before you do the lab, I know that was a toxic powder. But I'm sure, if inhaled, toxic if inhaled, it's not like deadly to touch. But I maybe inhaled a little bit of it, I don't know. Fun times. Fun times, except I was miserable doing that lab, because I had Calculus 2 also, and you have the lecture to go with it. And I had Japanese 1020, but Japanese is actually pretty easy. That's not a hard class. I'm kind of in between things right now. It's part of why I'm doing YouTube videos again. It's a fun thing I used to do as a kid, and so it's something I'm trying out again. I might go back and keep doing chemistry, but if I do, I'm only gonna do so many classes per semester, because that shit stressed me out. Did not feel conducive to learning. It felt conducive. Sometimes it felt like it was me being put inside that tiny little vial, crushed up, you know? But the machine I was talking about with those vials, it lets you look. It's basically like a glorified magnascope with a little light, and it also weighs it. But there's a little thing to tap down, because it's hard to get that small of a substance into the vial. I'm gonna make a run for the doctor bag. I don't know if I said that was okay for the challenge, but I'm doing it anyway. So, because it's hard to get that little bit of, oh, Cloakers, I failed to consider this. Because it's hard to get that little bit down, they have a little mechanism you press that just like jiggles it a little, so it falls in there like it's an auto tapper. That thing was funny. That was a real doohickey. That was a 100% mechanism. I love that thing. Alright, let me burn the door. Oh, hello, fucker. Already used the doctor bag? Alright, let's piss off then. Back to the Mutant Mayhem zone. You're only allowed to do Mutant Mayhem in certain areas. Those are the rules of Mutant Mayhem. That's what makes it mayhem in a mutated way. I need to get back to my homeland. Alright, here we are. Back in old familiar territory. Maybe too familiar territory. There is a kind of an... Oh, my statue. There is kind of an inherent problem with a stay in one area challenge, which is that in the video, the surroundings are going to get very repetitive. I have to work twice as hard to keep it interesting. And I only got so many chemistry stories. I guess I might as well burn through all my chemistry stories now since I'm already on the topic. I don't have to bring it up again in another video. But so there's an IR machine. You read it with certain wavelengths. When you see IR display in these wavelengths, you know you probably have certain bonds that correspond to those wavelengths. That's spectroscopy. That's how we know all kinds of stuff, like what is on different moons and planets and stars, shit like that. Very cool field. Except, oh, you know what? I just explained the wrong thing also. Actually, I'm talking about hydrogen nuclear magnetic resonance. Which I'm struggling to remember how that even works. But the gist is, you get these little, like feeds, right? You get wave back, and they have different amounts of splitting, which refers to this is just a chemistry lesson now. Fuck you, you clicked on a PAYDAY video. So you get, each of these little peaks corresponds to a splitting per peak, different types of hydrogens in an organic compound. Like the ones that are on the outside only connected to one carbon, they'll give one type of peak, and the hydrogens on adjacent patterns determine the split. It's a big thing. Whatever. I'm probably showing a picture of it. The picture is what you really need here. The gist is, we were doing one for like 1,3-dichloromethane, something like that. And I had a peak that I had a pretty like experienced, smart professor, and he normally had like explanations for most things. He knew stuff like better than the book, but he would do stuff better than he would like work over it. I respect that. Very cool. But I got a weird mystery reading. Every other reading was correct on that like little sheet there. So I confirmed the presence of the thing we were trying to synthesize. I just also had another mystery reading. Inexplicable. No idea why it was there. No, none of my classmates knew. The professor didn't know. I sure as hell didn't know. I'm fucking stupid. That's kind of my little magnum opus. One day I hope to figure out why I had a mystery reading, even if it's a very banal explanation. It can't just be machine error, because people went after me and didn't have the same error. It was a unique error I had. I just had a little chemical freak up. And I'd love to know more about that. Yeah, any people with doctorates in chemistry in the comment section want to help me out there, that'd be just swell. Alright, this is kind of flatlining to a point where I don't think I'm going to be dying anytime soon. I'm not going to get caught here. I have to go ahead and leave this area and make something more interesting happen. So let's go ahead and continue the heist. I don't want to die. Wait, I don't want to. But me. What do I think? Don't I get a say in this? Alright, that was another wave down, by the way. I wasn't even paying attention to that. Make sure I catch that. Alright, so it's important now I get back to that doctor bag at some point. Oh, I'm wrong side. I die for that, don't I? Well, I suppose that's the limit. That's as much as I could do. I figure that concludes that well enough.